All right, welcome back to Tarot by the Bay. I'm David, and I have a very special guest, a friend, and a lovely intuitive that I would like to share with you. This is Shawna Ristic. Shawna, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Well, hi, David. Thanks for having me on your show.
All right, Shawna, I've known Shawna for about I think it's 10 years now. I
Maybe,
was
or maybe like 9. I think I've been in California for 9.
okay.
But it's from the
Yeah,
beginning.
it was roughly 2015, I think, is when
Yeah.
this happened.
Oh,
I was
gosh.
going to Ian's meetings over in Saratoga, and at this particular meeting, Dr. Raymond Moody was giving a lecture, and I was really excited because I've heard of Raymond Moody. We've all heard of Raymond Moody if you're familiar with NDEs, and to hear him speak was an absolute treat. I have never heard an orator like this guy. And I've been to college, I've been to grad school. I don't think I've ever heard somebody just more relaxed, just get up there and talk. And we were talking about ancient Greek philosophers, I believe was the topic matter. Shauna, how did you become familiar with Dr. Moody?
We were involved in a project with him that actually fueled my move to Santa Cruz, where my husband was going to co-teach a class on the near-death experiences at University of California, Santa Cruz.
Ghost slugs,
Yeah.
banana slugs at Santa Cruz. So so Dr. Moody talked for probably about an hour and a half. And at the end of his talk, he introduced Shauna. And Shauna came up, and I think she spent about 20 minutes talking about an NDE that she had experienced in her late teens or early 20s. I think it was late teens is when it happened. And after the talk, I had gone up to Shauna and introduced myself, and we chatted for a little bit. And I think she had mentioned during that talk that she was a certified massage therapist. And I've been having back problems. I've had back problems for years. And soon afterwards, I started uh, having a massage work done with Shauna on an infrequent basis. Later became on a regular basis. Now I go about every other week with her as we try to stay ahead of my back problems. And my back problems suck because she's been there for one of them. I describe it as it's a muscle spasm with a jellyfish strapped to your backbone. Because when it goes, holy crap, it feels like I'm being tased. And in one of my really bad ones, she was there for it. She had just done some work for me, and I was trying to move on the table or get off the table, and it spasmed, and I'm cursing and swearing,
Mm-hmm.
and not crying, but it sounds like it at that point. And she's like, holy, what have I gotten myself into? But knock on wood, we try and stay ahead of it and things like that. But during the massage things, she and I would talk about spirituality, spiritual things, and things along those lines. And she's got a lot of exciting things that she is about to embark upon. And I wanted to share her story with you, my audience, and hopefully can get people turned on to her channel. She's got a TikTok channel. She has a YouTube channel, and she's also setting up courses. With this new course that you're doing? Could you at least explain to the audience kind of what it's all about?
Yeah. Well, I've gotten really busy, both with in-person clients and with people that I work with online through Zoom and through the phone doing intuitive readings. And I realized that I really need to, in order to help more people, really wanted to create either more of me or work in groups. So that's sort of the goal here, is that I have a 7-month course that I'm offering that's a journey to the self. And that's really helping people step into being an intuitive healer themselves. And then there's a shorter version that's 3 months that's more of a coaching that helps people get through stuck points in their lives from a more spiritual perspective, understanding more their intuition. And then, people today are having more and more spiritual experiences. Those experiences that are sort of these moments that take you out of everyday reality and make you question what you thought was real. sort of like,
and we're
but
and we're
it's like
seeing
that
that
allegedly,
every day
right?
in politics, right?
Totally, totally. We're all having a massive spiritual experience right now. We're all waking up to our self-awareness and realizing what the heck is going on, right? And that things aren't what we were led to believe they are, right? I mean, and I think that's a great point, because we're all having these experiences, and before we couldn't talk about them, even when like the woo-woo ones would happen, like my near-death experience, I couldn't talk about it for like 20 years because people just glaze over. They can't really take that in. But nowadays, NDE is becoming more mainstream. People are talking about their experiences. People don't feel so marginalized about it.
Yeah.
So my goal is to help people integrate those experiences into their daily life, into their everyday life, and then use that to help them connect more with their intuition and fuel that, come from that perspective when they're functioning in their daily life. And that's what I'm doing with the coaching.
And I think one of the values for it that's maybe not obvious is the peace that you will get from it, because it kind of takes you out of the day-to-day drama and gets you to take the step back and try and look at a bigger picture look on our lives. Right now, the news cycle would have you be concerned about really focused topics with the intent of getting you worked up. It's like it's like telling spooky stories around the campfire. Drawing everybody close. And it's not so spooky if you're sitting 10 feet away watching the whole thing unfold than it is when you're in that close, intimate setting.
Totally.
Yeah, it's like a counterbalance, a grounding counterbalance for yourself.
Yeah, and I think that, to your point, that what I call that is externalized. We're all sort of sucked outside of ourselves and made to believe that everything is happening out here and that we need to control this, but that oftentimes if we can drop into here, into more self-awareness and into this more inner space, and then come from that more grounded, centered awareness, we're much more effective when we go out here, rather than forgetting about all this and just coming into the hoobaloo. And we've got a fearless leader that's really great at drawing us into that externalized space, right? Making us forget all about who we are as these anchored, centered beings that have a right to be here.
Right. So, let's give people a little bit of your backstory. When did you first realize that you had some form of intuition or insight that, at the time, I guess you wouldn't know, right? Because that's just normal for you. But let's give us a, kind of a 5-minute intro of who you are and how you got to where you are.
Sure. Well, I mean, I was really intuitive as a kiddo, but I didn't realize that. We lived in an old house and there was always, doors shutting, and I'd see light beings, or like this light being who peeked his fingers around the corner and looked at me one night by my bed, or, just incarnate beings.
How old were you when that happened?
We moved into that house when I was in second grade, so I was probably 7 or 8.
So 7 years old, you see a light being creepy.
Yeah, I was probably more like 10 when that happened, but yeah.
How did you not freak the hell out? That would scare the living bejesus out of me.
I do, and I developed this great technique. You put your fingers in your ears and you close your eyes and you go, I don't want to see this, I don't want to see this, I don't want to see this, I don't want to see this. And then you just shut down and it goes away. Because they were always friendly. They didn't want to scare me either, One time I remember looking and seeing this disincarnate being, like these legs standing. I heard someone walk in the kitchen behind me and I turned and looked and see someone, and then I get to the waist and they're gone. And I'm like, I think I'm going to get up and go sit with my family now.
Yeah, I mean, yikes. Yeah, it's the pulling the blankets over your head. It works really well.
Yeah.
Who knew that was the right defense?
Right. Well, so, these things would happen, and I tried to talk to, my parents about it and explain what was going on, that I thought the house was haunted. I didn't realize it was really mostly me that could see these things. And, as good rational people, they just told me it was my imagination, and that, I was just a child who had a busy imagination. And for me, that made me really scared, because I thought, oh, well, either I'm crazy or I'm not safe. And, I kind of looked around me for more explanations and ended up watching that was in the 80s when all those hacker flicks, Freddy Krueger and all that stuff was really big.
Gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. And watched The Exorcist and found out that was supposed to be based on a true story. And that scared the bejeebus out of me. And I did everything I could to just shut it down from then on out. And and I mostly shut it down, but I didn't really shut down my ability to connect with other people in that way. Just shut down, seeing things and hearing things as much. And then when I was in my late teens and going to college, went to college, away to college when I was 18, I felt like I had really lost a part of myself. Like I had shut something out that, like my intuition and, that more connection, spiritual connection. So I started trying to open that back up, but I was really scared because of, my past with it. I had nightmares for years after watching The Exorcist. And then when I was 19, I got into a serious car accident and spent about a month in a coma. And that pretty much blasted me back open.
Okay.
I remember my time on the other side. I mean, what happened here is I flipped my car end over end across the median on the highway and going 75 and then across the other 2 lanes of traffic. And then they found me about 40 feet from the car turning blue and took me to a hospital. Then they life flighted me to Kansas City and I spent about 3 or 4 weeks in a coma there. And then they transferred me to a neurological hospital for rehabilitation where they said it would be 4 to 6 weeks or 4 to 6 months to rehab. And I would probably still need medical assistance and not live on my own. And I did it in 4 weeks and got out and was back in school by that fall. So that was what happened on this side. And then, for me, what I was experiencing were an experience with these light beings that lifted me out of my body and showed me what I had come to do and what I'd done up to this point and what would be possible. And after coming back from the near-death experience, and they also showed me how everything is connected, how we're all connected. And that if one person goes out or does something, it creates a ripple that affects everything else. And we can see that happening today. Some people need to take a little more responsibility for that are in power, in my opinion, but
I want to jump back into your NDE real quick because
Yeah.
this is, to me, the absolutely most fascinating parts of. I should say, I find NDEs to be fascinating, which is the whole reason why I went to IONS in the first place, where you and I first connected there. So, when you crashed your car, now this was during the winter time, so she was driving fast, and the conditions were not the greatest for.
Right, it was Christmas Day. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not the Merry Christmas, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So when your car was crashing, when the realization was happening that, because I think you said how did you get into the car crash, and just sort of describe step by step what was happening from that part on, because that's again, it's a very interesting story.
So I was driving through town. I was on my way to the airport and I was running late. And so I got up on the highway and I was going about 75 and I was going over a bridge and I was going to be passing a car, but I wanted to pick up my cell phone, which back then was those big bag phones that plug into the cigarette lighter. I wanted to pick that up in the passenger floorboard. So I took my seatbelt off after I was almost past the car and over the bridge. And I bent to pick up my cell phone. And as I was coming up, I came close to just hitting that car. So I swerved to miss. And then I nosedived. Well, actually, what I remember was that I fishtailed. And then I pulled over to the side and what I thought happened, and then recuperated and kept going. But what really happened was that I nosedived into the median and I didn't have my seatbelt on. So it fractured my face. I have metal plates in my jaw now, or my chin, broke it completely off and had head injuries and nosedived into the median. Then I flipped end over end across the 2 lanes of the median and then across the 2 lanes of traffic and then was thrown out from the car. I don't have, I mean, sometimes some of my memories from that whole experience have come back over time. Like when I sit and just really go in and meditate with it and have the courage to be with my sweet body and see what it saw. And, I remember getting kicked out of body and kind of being up in this haze and looking down at all the flashing lights and all the cars coming and then coming back into body and being like, wow, this is really broken and useless. It just felt like a shell, like empty. And then kind of popping back out. And then they they ambulanced me back to Ottawa where I was living, my hometown. And then they life flighted me out of there.
Okay. And You have a memory of going to the other side and going through that. How did that? Well, share that
Yeah.
story.
So I remember the next thing I know is I'm waking up and I'm in this really bright white room, really bright white. And I can't really see anything like furniture or something, just white. And there's these six beings that are very tall and they're sort of glowing white light beings. And they lift their hands underneath me and then lift me up, and I come up out of my body. And then I'm standing there in this room with them, but there's just this immense amount of love. Like everything's okay. And like, it's like I just came home to my family, but like real family, not the one with all the baggage that we all have, you know? Um, Total okayness and love and acceptance. And that's where they showed me, what I had done, what I had come to do, and what I had done up to this point. I saw sort of some life review, saw how my actions unknowingly to me had affected people that I cared about, and
The
how
ripple effect you were talking about.
pardon me?
The ripple effect that you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and they also showed me kind of like looking out of that life is like looking out of a window of the airplane down at a city. And you see all the lights, and we're each like a light, and we're each connected. And if one light goes out, it creates like a power surge that affects the whole grid,
Mm.
right? And that if I were to choose to leave, that it would create a grid or an outage. Some lights go out completely, some dim, some are unaffected, but that it creates a big power surge through the grid, and that we're each that way. And so and then they showed me what it was that I came here to do, and I wish that I remembered that perfectly because that'd make life much easier.
Did
But
they? Oh, so you probably knew it at the time, and they've blocked you from remembering it now.
yeah, when you get, just like we do in our lives, where we have an experience and then our active mind comes in and creates all these things that we need to think about, and you forget about it, or you're
Okay.
not really clear. But one thing I did know when I woke up from the coma was that I was here to help people heal and find their way back home,
Okay.
back to their spiritual truth that they are, because I understood that we all come here with our agendas of what we came here to do as a soul or a spirit, whatever you want to call that part of ourselves that's beyond this mind and body. We come here with our agenda, and then we get kind of stuck in things. We kind of get wrapped up in all that external stuff, and we forget who we are. And there's a lot of people who've really forgotten who they are, who are creating so much pain and suffering on the planet. I think we can all think of some of those people. And that in itself is creating a sort of like, I guess we could call it a karma, kind of a karmic wheel that makes them get stuck in samsara, in this circle of life and death. And they've completely forgotten these loving, enlightened beings that each of us really is. And so that's my goal, is to help people remember that in themselves.
When you were in heaven, I had a couple questions. You're saying that the light beings are tall. You're about 6 feet tall yourself. Is that
Oh,
correct?
yeah.
Were they much taller than you?
Yeah, actually they were. Yeah. No one's
How
ever
how
asked me
tall
that,
would
but
you
you're
get
right.
them to be?
About maybe a couple feet taller,
So like 8 feet tall or so?
maybe 7 or 8 feet.
Gosh.
I mean, I hadn't really thought about it in feet because it was just there,
Got
and
it.
just this immense love. You more recognize the it's like I call it the impregnation of it, that vibration of it. I remember when I was coming out of the coma, and there was one moment where I kind of awoke, and my friend was sitting there, and he was dozing, and I remember looking at him and thinking, wake up, wake up, wake up. And he opened his eyes and he looks at me and he's like, oh, Shawna, you're awake. And I had all sorts of surgery on my face, so I couldn't really talk, and I kind of mumbled something, and I think he thought I wanted to know what happened, so he starts talking to me. I have no idea what he said, but what I noticed was how that vibration of that love thing that I felt was here too. That the
Mm.
whole space that we exist in is really that love that's here working in our favor and working to serve humanity, or working to serve us as beings here. And that it's in each person. I could see it in his eyes. I can see it in your eyes, that we each have that perfect lightness that we are inside. It's just that lots of us have, as we go through life, we have experiences that create sort of filters over our light. So then we start seeing life through these filters, and these perspectives, and we forget who we are inside. That's why I say it's important to come here and then from that place look out rather than being out here, right? I mean, we all know people who are, very much stuck in their sort of ego filters where they can only see hate and anger or things that are attacking them or that everything's against them. Or you can think of some people you talk about a lot that would fit that bill.
And you're saying when you sort of recovered, when you came back and you recovered from this, it really blew open the your intuition and your sensitivity to that. How has that manifested itself for you over the years, and how have you developed that?
So when I first came back, then, it was really just like, oh my God, I got to get my body back together. I've got to start walking again. I've got to start eating and feeding myself and talking. It's just some basic daily living things you got to figure out. And that came back pretty quickly, thankfully. And then went back to college, and then I hit this depression, and it's really hard how we treat each other here and the suffering we create on this planet. It's really hard. And when you come from that big blown open love space and you understand that, and then you come back to the densities of this 3D reality and see how people in their ignorance treat each other, it's really painful. It's really painful. And so I got really depressed about it, and I didn't have anybody to really talk to about that. How do you talk to people when they're like, but you just survived this thing. You're supposed to be nothing but gratitude for being here. And so I started journaling about it. And then as I journaled, I'd kind of go into just sort of automatic writing, just writing whatever was coming and kind of go into a trance or something, just writing whatever came through my pen. And then I would go back and read it, and I know something started answering me. And that's where I started working with the counsel that I met on the other side from this side. So for a long time, I would just journal them, and they helped me guide me through. And then they taught me one of my biggest tips that I teach people is to follow expansion, is that you follow what opens you and expands you and draws you to it. And what closes you and pulls you and pushes you away is a no. And so I started getting curious about that and found my way to massage school through a bunch of serendipity and things like that. And I walked into the school and I was like, oh, this is it. And then started my path as a healer and began my practice right away as a way to, I actually went into it thinking it would be a way to make, to support myself financially while I went to school, because I wanted to go to school to prove doctors wrong because they all said I wouldn't be able to do it. And so then I went.
No ego there.
No. That was also proving that I was, able to be a functioning human again,
Yeah, gotcha.
And so went back to college and did that and ran my practice during that time. And a lot of times in session, like information would just come. It would happen really spontaneously. Sometimes I would just know things, or sometimes my hands would just go to where they needed. Sometimes a visualization would come in, but I couldn't really control it. It just happened. And then flash forward probably 10 years. I mean, I was already married with a child and everything. And the council started telling me, that it was about time to start going bigger or changing things up and moving into bigger audiences. And then through a bunch of serendipitous events, it ended up fueling our move to Santa Cruz. And then we moved here, and that was a pretty tumultuous experience. But here people are, open to talking about that stuff. In Kansas, I didn't really talk about the spiritual part. That's what people came for. And they all showed up for that, hoping that some information would come. But I didn't hang a shingle out of, and I didn't really know how to talk about it. And so when you saw me with Raymond was actually the first time I ever spoke about my near-death experience.
That's what I seem to recall too from when
it was 20 years after it had happened. I mean, I talked about it a little bit to some people, but I've never publicly spoken about it. Right. And then as we've been here, things have just really unfolded more and more. And now I'm able to know how to access them more at will. And then with COVID and with podcasts coming online, people started interviewing me, and then I started working more at distance, and I realized I could read people whether I was in person with them or not. That actually sometimes on phone or Zoom is a little bit easier because their physical and emotional bodies don't get in the way.
Yeah. I could totally see it. I could see where you could connect really well with them if they're in person, but I could also see the interference that could come with that as well.
Yeah,
Double-edged sword.
I learned that I could use people's names because it's a sound vibration that they've always resonated with. So
Okay.
I use their first and that last name, and then I like to have a location in the world where they are because there could be multiple people with that name. So I go up into the matrix and sort of direct my energy towards them and then drop into them and then have a little process I created to help me understand, what it feels like to be them and, what's coming up for them and how to help them and what maybe is influences on this perspective and where they're going. And, I've done that with people who are in body, who are on the other side, with pets, with all of it. So,
okay. I had posted that up on my post page, and the number of comments I have had for people who, when they mentioned that you can do pets, the amount of comments. I've been sharing some screenshots with Shawna about this. The pet owners, man, they are ready. They are locked and ready to go.
Yeah, it's a little bit more challenging because with a person, I have a name and an identity that I can anchor into. Whereas with the pet, I often have to go through the person to get to them, which is still okay. I found even easier if I have a picture of the pet.
I was going to ask if pictures help on that one.
That does help. I've discovered that.
Sean and I are going to be doing a live this upcoming Tuesday, November 4th at I believe it's 1:00 Pacific time. And we'll be taking questions. And I fully suspect half or more of the questions are going to be with regards to people's lost fur babies or current fur babies, as the case may be. Just as an aside, I've been through about a little over 200 hours of massage school, and I was going at a time where I was starting a divorce process or just about to start a divorce process with my wife, and talk about finding your people. I totally understand what you were saying when you went to massage school and you found your people. Same here. I could talk about the woo with them and not be considered a freak.
Right.
And talk about being able to relax and really open up because you're not going to be judged. And it's such a hard thing to overcome.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the people I work with, especially those in other parts of the country that are outside of the Bay Area, tell me that they feel like that they wish they had more people like me that they could talk to about their experiences because they don't have anybody. So that is something I'm trying to create with this coaching and master classes. I'm creating a community. I'm working on setting up that platform so that people who work with me can come into that community and have other people who they can associate with that are like-minded.
Okay. I've got Shawna's her website right by my name here, www.shawnaristic.com. If you're listening to this podcast as opposed to watching it, as some people do, like they're doing housework or driving, if you just forward to that, the 2730, anytime during the thing, if you look at it, it'll be there. I'll have it in the description of the video as well as on my community/post page. Go ahead and give it a check out. See if you find yourself kind of adrift and you're just sort of looking for any type of beacon to hold on to, this might work for you. Go check it out. See if it is. Give it a shot. The worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work for you. That's the absolute worst thing. The best thing it is, give you some inner peace, give you some tools to work with, and it can really open up your life. Go for it. You got nothing to lose. You really have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So let's play a little bit, shall we? Okay. Let's start with an easy one. Our current president of the United States. What do you see now? A real popular one has been his health. We've seen in his first term, it looks like he's had some mini strokes, and with this recent term, you could see where, like on the campaign trail, he wasn't as sharp as he was back in 2016 or even 2020. Mumbling and slurring words, can't really string together sentences to communicate a thought. They've come up with some term called the weave, where he just talks about random things.
More than usual.
Yeah, if you listen to him, it's easier. If you try and read it, good luck trying to figure out what he's talking about.
Mhm.
He disappeared during Labor Day after for 5 days, and when he came back, his face was drooping on a side. He had a trip to Walter Reed. He's mistaken an IQ test for the Montreal test, which is used to determine mental cognitive function, like if you have Alzheimer's or a stroke, that sort of thing. Um, and it just looks like his health is in very much in a downward spiral. What do you see happening for the rest of the year with him?
Oh, for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Well, when you first started talking about him, I just kind of tuned into it, and there's a lot of sadness in him.
Mm.
Um, you know, he's really tired.
I
Um,
just saw. To interrupt. I just saw a picture of him where he was. Uh, what was it? Unfortunately, I don't have it up right now. He just made some announcement, and I was looking at him. And it's like, oh my god, he looks terrible.
right.
I've never seen him look so old and haggard. But carry
And
on.
I just see him, I mean, he just looks very sad, like a little boy who will never be loved, and he's kind of created this whole facade around him, this whole like ivory tower thing around him.
Mhm.
And he's pretty much just living in that, but living, it kind of looks like a plastic doll kingdom, I mean, like a fake facade that he's
Yeah.
living. hmm Um, so I mean, it's hard to say how long he'll be around, but I feel like he's here more because other people tell him he needs to be, more than because of himself right now. Um,
Would you say that he's also doing it to protect himself from? He's got the Epstein files are just they're lurking. What
yeah, I mean,
maybe
if
this is
he's going to have his whole legacy, totally crumble, especially once he checks out and he's not there trying to hold the reins.
right.
So there's that for sure, because he's got a strong ego that's really been fighting, as part of that facade that he creates, that whole ego thing. But I feel like that's even crumbling, that ego thing is crumbling. And, he'd probably really like to just go sit down for a while, but they're not going to let him do that. There's other powers besides him that are pushing him forward to be to stand him up. I won't be surprised if they put up a little AI version of him for a while before we all realize he's passed.
Right. And it makes sense, right? Because look at the things he's doing. He's talking about building up, he's torn down the east wing of the White House to build this ballroom.
He's not
He,
building that necessarily for himself. I mean, it is because he's got this whole, everything's got to be this gilded,
yeah,
facade around him, to create this incubation for him. But I feel like that's not just for him, that's for others. It's a hiding place.
okay. And then you've got the Arc de Trump Triumph, his version of the Arc de Triomphe that he wants to put near the White House as well.
I hadn't heard that. Oh
You hadn't
God,
heard that?
no.
Yeah, that was the other day. He had like three models. He had a small version, a medium-sized version, and a large version. Guess which one he preferred?
The big version.
Of course. So
Yeah. But there's all these things where he's still trying to prove that I matter and I'm going to leave an imprint somehow.
yeah,
Right. That's not just me with the Epstein files.
yeah, and that's just it. Because now maybe tap in with this one. What happens to him the minute those Epstein files come out? Because he seems to be terrified that those things are going to come out and destroy his legacy. Because it
Right.
sure
It
looks
is
like
about
they're doing.
destroying his legacy.
Yeah,
Well, that's part of why he's building these structures, because even if his ego legacy is destroyed, his structures still stand.
got it.
Right. Um, and they're really fighting tooth and nail about the Epstein files. And I'm going to be really surprised if they don't get destroyed or something. You know, um, I also see that he may check out by then if that
Yeah,
happens. I see him hiding, and I don't know if that means I mean, he may leave to another country or something, but I would see that may also mean that he's going to check out then.
kind of like if you're not. This is going to be a crude analogy, sorry, but when those Epstein files come out, it's going to be like somebody blasted the nastiest fart in the room, and he's acting like if he's in
I didn't do that. I would go
another room, it's not him who dealt it.
right.
Sorry, it's just like, yeah, I come up with the greatest analogies, don't I?
Right. But I also think that the Epstein files aren't just about him. They're about all the other people implicated that he's trying that on the one hand he's trying to protect because they protect him. And
Right.
that's part of the hiding thing that I see. That, you know, it's a larger structure that's holding him up.
Yeah. And again, I think if he's not in the room, he can deny it. He can say it's just a witch. You know, I'm already doing the accordion of hypnotic falsehoods that he does. He can deny it. He's not in the room. It's those other people. I'm over here. I'm being persecuted. I'm the president in exile, if you will, type of thing. But yeah, that's the vibe I get from that is as this information starts coming out, it's going to bring down a lot of people. And it seems like the people that are involved in this are wealthy, powerful, politically connected white men. Or I should say men mostly white and probably typically older.
Right. And that's what I'm talking about, this collective shadow that's shaking up, right?
Yeah.
That we're all going to have to, it's just like what we do on a personal level when we start to, like, you might talk to your partner and like somehow you just say something that's really, you know, reactive and kind of yell at them. And then later you're like, why did I do that? So then you might notice that about yourself. And like most of us who are self-aware would go and like talk to your therapist or go to a retreat or do a meditation or do something to move through that and discover something about yourself that's making you react that way. And that's what's happening on the collective, is that all that stuff we've been doing to don't look over here is starting to shake up, and we're going to have to start dealing with it.
Right. So it's like, yeah, a self-reflection, going in and saying, you know, what it's like, I just took it out on this person. What the hell's going on in here that caused me to react like that as opposed to any other way?
Right. And he is the perfect emblem of that reaction.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he's nothing but reaction.
Right. There's no self-reflection I've ever seen.
There's no substance there. There's no there. It's just constant, you know, reaction.
Now, assuming that he is no longer in power, the next person in line, as succession goes in the United States, is J.D. Vance. And I just did a reading on him, and the vibe I get from this guy is he is a chameleon. He will morph into, it's like he's the fart in the room. He can, a gas that can take any shape he wants to further his, to me, is he's a man driven by ambition. And whatever shape, color, opinion he needs to form in order to advance that, he will do so.
I would agree with that. And
it's from a kind of like, either if you want to look into him, like what do you see coming up for him, or from a big, you know, a 30,000 foot spiritual view of J.D. Vance, what do you see happening with the current vice president as he goes down his path, which he thinks is going to land him the
This was a really big opportunity for him, you know, to step into this role. I mean, I just see a lot of ignorance, but ability to refine that ignorance, right? Okay. You know, so ignorance meaning, you know, he's a quick learn, and there's a lot of things he maybe didn't know, and he just kind of wanted. He's not unlike Trump in them wanting the stardom and wanting, you know, whatever he sees success to be. And so this opportunity for vice presidency was a really big opportunity for him, and he took that. But he like you said, he's a little bit of a chameleon, so he'll just use that ability to refine his ignorance to learn to be what he needs to be in order to pull things through for the powers that are manifest, that are kind of manipulating him.
Yeah.
But the ignorance is the part where he won't necessarily see the manipulation. He won't realize he's being manipulated, but he will be. And he's a quick learn and a quick study, so he can learn fast. But, you know, I don't know. I hate to even say this but I see that, you know, there is the possibility that he may turn it around, not turn around our country, but he may have an awakening and sort of realize his foolish ways. if that would serve him somehow in the future. Not unlike like Marjorie Taylor Greene is sort of waking up a little bit, right?
Exactly.
You
Okay,
know?
that's a beautiful connection, right?
Mhm.
Marjorie Taylor Greene's looking at which way the wind blows. And JD Vance does the same thing.
Right, right,
And she
exactly.
realizes that being the extreme MAGA is great if your ambition is to be a House member in a very gerrymandered district.
Right,
But if you want to be a senator, a governor, or
right.
anything else like that, you can't be the radical, the extremist that you are. Now, being the
I
extremist,
also think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I say being the extremist got her name recognition. So now
Mhm,
she's got name
mhm,
recognition, and now she's trying to dump the Jewish space lasers part of her agenda and try to now reset herself as the more reasonable.
mhm,
The Republicans can open Congress and they
mhm.
could negotiate with the Democrats, and we can get this budget passed. Listening to the Democrats and give people their health care and their SNAP benefits. Now all of a sudden, whoever would have thought that Marjorie Taylor Greene and I would have shared political opinions.
Right.
Carry
But I
on.
also think there is a component to her that really wants to do good by the people. Not all people. Well, there's something in her that thinks she's helping people, but
Okay.
she's also like JD Vance, and she's not realizing she's being manipulated.
Mm,
Right? She doesn't have the necessarily where she doesn't. She's a little smarter than he is, so in some ways she does. But it's like she doesn't have the wherewithal to realize that the people she's been listening to that have been telling her what needs to happen are actually the ones that are really hurting the rest of the others, right? And because if she's got ambitions,
yeah.
then that also she'll start listening to the other people, and
There's
then she's a little
there's
smarter in her manipulation ability. She's a quick learn on how to manipulate.
right. The the kind of the thing, a little saying I have that's I've been using this one recently. She thinks she's way more clever than she really is. She's way too confident in her opinions on things than she should be because she really doesn't have the intellectual horsepower to drive that confidence.
Mm,
There's something called, are you familiar with the Dunning-Kruger effect?
mm-mm,
Dunning-Kruger is basically a study where people get a little bit of knowledge on a subject matter and their confidence level in that
mm,
subject matter
mm. Yeah,
shoots way up.
yeah,
They're suddenly an expert
yeah.
and it's not because they slept at a Holiday Inn Express. They read a book and all of a sudden they're an expert because they read this book.
Mhm.
For a lot of people, as they read more on the subject, they start losing confidence quickly because they start to realize it's not as simple as they thought it was.
Mm,
It's way more complex.
mhm.
And when they read more, they realize how much they don't know.
Right.
And then as you read more and more, learn more and more about it, your confidence starts to increase again because now you truly are becoming an expert. Dunning-Kruger effect is for the people that read that one book, think they're an expert, and then they stop there.
Right. Right.
And they're proud as a peacock, loud, proud, and come across as completely and utterly ignorant to anybody that knows more about the subject
Right.
matter than they
Right.
do.
Right. So she tries to play it off that she knows what the people need, but she's
Yeah,
very ignorant about that because she comes from a totally different space,
right.
that's more aligned with these people who've been manipulating her to believe, to sort of put this whole MAGA thing forward, right? And to
Now,
believe that that's what the people are and what they want. And only listening to that little sliver of people who are in that field rather than the rest of us, right?
the one thing that I do see, a lot of this country would just as soon flush the Republican Party or flush the conservatives, flush MAGA. Um, and one of the things I've come across, and I'll let you sort of opine on this one. It's like, to me, the Democrats and the Republicans, or the left and the right, is like planning a vacation. Leave it to the progressives to dream about the trip to Paris they want to take. All the things they want to see, they'll do all the reading. They'll read about all the monuments, all the cities, the histories, what the south of France is like versus other areas, and what they want to do, and how they're going to get there, how they're going to move around. This whole thing. They come up with this big giant vacation. It's going to be an amazing 4-week adventure. The Republicans or the conservatives are really, really good at saying, okay, well, wait a minute. we've got this much of a budget. I'm not saying the Democrats can't budget, but we've got this much of a budget. We can't be there for 4 weeks, but we can do 15 days.
Right.
And if we if we fly economy there, we can stay in a better hotel while we are there. And we may not be able to see all those things, but pick the top 4 things you want to see, and we'll go get those things.
Right.
So that we'll be focused, we'll learn a lot about this and move it forward. The Republicans that I've seen are really good at pushing things forward.
Right. They're good at execution, and the Democrats can be good at planning.
Yeah, the Democrats plan, the Republican or the conservatives are good at pushing things through.
Right,
because once they have their marching orders and they know what it's expected of them, you can't stop them from doing what they're going to do. They'll just bulldoze you.
Right. Right. No, I would agree with that. I think that's a really good analogy. I would agree with that.
And that's why we can't flush them, because if we want to rebuild this society.
Right. Well, we can't flush them either because they're part of us. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
You know, we're all in this together. And that's the thing we all seem to have forgotten about in this, is that and that's something that's really come out of this whole administration, is this othering. There's me and there's the other, whatever the other is. But that's such an illusion, right? Because we're all in this at the same point. We're all in this together. And, you know, sure, we can get rid of people, but we're still in it together, right? You know, I don't even know how to say that in another way. You know?
Would you, here's a thought.
If we could just stop othering, you know.
Yeah. Would you say that what we're really experiencing in this country is the uber wealthy versus the peasants, rather than a left? It's presented as a left versus right issue, but what it really is the lords versus the peasants issue.
Yeah, I would say definitely. And, you know, there's a lot of, we can even get talked into, you say Lord, that makes me think of the Bible and all that. And I'm not a Bible expert, but, you know, I know that even the term Lord has been manipulated by the King James Bible to be God, but it's not. You know, it was actually the king, right? You know, so we've got all these people bowing down to the Lord, you know, who is kind of like this king, you know, maybe it's less, you know, and that's what we've got in power right now, who's wanting to lord over people. And it is in a lot of ways like those that have are creating, it's that othering, the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
Right.
Did what do you I'll have you tap into the council here. What are we supposed to learn from what we're currently experiencing? You know, SNAP benefits being withheld from people, the just the general suffering that some people basically voted to have cruelty done to others, and instead they're the ones suffering the most from that cruelty.
Right. It's ignorance.
And is that meant to wake them up because they have to experience their shadow as
it's like a dark night of the soul that's happening. And it's that belief system that there's someone else out there who is creating suffering for me. And so if I do something to them, I'm going to be okay. But actually, it's quite the opposite. When you do something to them, you hurt yourself, you know. And I mean, that goes into, in my opinion, a lot of this whole victim program that we've all been running in this culture. And I mean, you watch every movie and it's all about the victim, and every victim needs a perpetrator and needs a savior. Right. And so when people get hooked into that victim, I'm a victim. And then Trump came along and said, these are the people who have why you're a victim. And there are people who are actually just like you, but we're going to tell you that they're the other that's causing your victimhood. And we're going to attack them. Never mind what we're doing, the puppets behind here that are creating that illusion. Right. And so they spike that victimhood that a lot of us have been brought up on. And then we're all thinking, oh, those people who are actually a lot more like us than these people telling us about them are the reason that we're feeling victimized, and we need a savior. So we're going to go towards these people who are telling us that these are the ones victimizing us, and they're going to be our saviors. But you see, it's all an illusion, right? And right here is where the truth is. Right? You're not a victim. Maybe if we out of victimhood and actually start to see the puppets, you know, and that those others are a lot more like us, And we've just been made to believe they're not, and that they're the cause of our problems so that we could be separated, because divide and conquer is a lot more of an effective way to control the masses than empowerment.
Do any insight as to what spirit might do to help that? We just discussed by having them suffer, it's going to help them wake up. Is there any other lessons that spirit might be using to help alleviate this problem that we have down here in Peasantville?
I think a lot of what's happening right now is things sometimes, just like on an individual level, that we have to hit rock bottom before we start to wake up.
Yeah.
That's what's happening on a cultural level. And then for a lot of people, it may have to hit that point to where we have to start stepping in, or before we can start waking up and realizing that we need to pull together. But what's really great about Americans is that they're really great about stepping in and helping each other when shit hits the fan. Excuse the language. But, when things get really tough in our communities around us, we start pulling and helping each other. And that's what's going to happen, I think, is that we're going to start pulling together as communities and start helping to heal each other and helping to support each other through this. And then, that's going to spread. I mean, if you look at the No Kings March, how many of us felt like we were kind of in isolated little bubbles with this, like what's going on, and that there was so many more people out there who were more MAGA or more in this other that is against us. And then we go out there and we're like, holy cow, there are so many people, so many of us who are actually there wanting to pull together, wanting to fight for love, wanting to fight for things to be better in the world. And that's, I think, is what's going to really pull us through this. Yeah. And that in my opinion is what Spirit's really doing, is it's all about finding our way back to love. It's all about finding and that's when you go home. It's when you realize it's all about love, right? And some people have to go really to the opposite and realize what's really not love in order for them to come full circle and realize what is.
I want to, it's interesting, metaphorically, you've shared a story with me when you were in Paris.
Montpellier, but yeah, France.
And you would purposely get lost. You would walk around to purposely get lost. And you were just sharing the thing. It's like, finding the steps back to love.
You follow the brightest path. You follow the brightest path.
Describe that. It's a great story. I love this story.
I was living in Montpellier, France, and the thing about a lot of the cities in France is that they are set up in, more around like centers of the city. So they're not like grids like in America where everything is north, south, east, and west, and you turn right and left and you're at 90 degrees. It's kind of all over the place. And so I would go out in the evenings and I would purposely just wander and wander and wander and wander and wander and get myself lost, because I noticed that some really interesting things would happen. First of all, I started learning how to connect with people or read people as I would walk past them. I would notice the ones that if you made eye contact too long, they'd come over and start harassing you or maybe, give you a hard time. Or the ones that you could also feel were ones you could trust and ask questions and ask directions from. So that was one study I did. But what I really noticed is that when I would go and I would like come to a divide in the street, if I would choose the side that felt the brightest, not necessarily the most light, but the one that made me feel more open and drew me to it, I would always find my way back home. Always. And I'd have a lot of interesting experiences along the way.
It's kind of a metaphor for our life, isn't it? Coming down out of the heavenly plane down to this world where you lose that connection over time. I think you hold on to it for the first few years of your life, but after a while that connection gets severed, and our lives are just a path, taking choices left or right.
Get back there, right?
To get back to that central one.
Right. I mean, we come here, you look at babies and they're just totally open little spirits that just arrived. And their whole purpose is, our purpose as parents, in my opinion, is just to hold open the doors so that and help them guide them to unfold into who they came to be, and then they have experiences like we all have, come at these little pure little lights. Hi, I'm on the earth. Woo, let's go have some fun. And then we have experiences after experiences that create those filters that make us see through the world in a certain way, like that, those programs like victimization program. And then we start looking for things that align with that until we hit a rock bottom, or we hit a point where we're like, I got to go in here because something's not working anymore. And then we start moving through all that. And then we start to notice, hey, if I just follow the brightest path, there's something helping me there, right? Universe is helping us. There's something guiding us. And if you follow that brightest path, you'll find your way every time.
And that's kind of where your business is set up, right? Is to help folks remove those filters,
Exactly.
so that their path, if nothing else, their path suddenly becomes brighter because you're not filtering out the light, which means it becomes a lot easier to make those, not a lot, easier to make those decisions. More and more filters are off. It's got to be easier to make those decisions.
Yeah, you come back into the truth of who you are. And then you can see out there, you don't get as triggered by out there, because you can see that we're all just little lights trying to find our way through these meat suits on this planet, you know? And you know, you can connect more with someone in that authentic way and see that, you know, they're just struggling. I mean, I see some of these MAGA folks and I'm like, you know, I feel sorry, you know, I'm like, I can see that there's something in there that's light, that wants to be loved, that wants to be safe, that wants to be okay. But they've just been misled to believe that out there is where it's at, and that someone out there is keeping them from that, when they're actually keeping themselves from that.
Right.
You know, and I'm grateful that, you know, there's a lot of us who are like yourself, and I'm sure many of the people watching this, that are really committed to being that truth and that love and finding that brighter path and finding that way, because that's what's going to lead us to a better place, right? And what Spirit also explained to me is that part of what's happening is that a lot of us, since like the 60s, when the gurus from the East came to the West, and, you know, we all started meditating or doing yoga or doing inner work. And then, you know, now, you know, what was fringe is now in every gym. You know, yoga's everywhere. Meditation's not a weirdo thing. You know, massage is like covered by insurance, you know. So those of us that have been doing the self-work and who have been really going in and trying to clear those shadows in ourselves, have, just like on a personal level, when you go in and you do that and you're like, oh, I get why I was reactive like that, and I feel better, and I understand that there was maybe this experience as a child that made me behave that way, and now I can really integrate that, just like on an individual level. Because what happens is then we feel better and we feel expanded and we walk around blissed out for a few days, and then something new bubbles up, you know, and we're like, oh, now I feel heavy again. Now I got to work through some more stuff. But you never go back to where you were. You never contract back to the beginning. You always keep moving into more and more expansion back to your truth. And that's what's happening on the collective, is that those of us who've been working on self-awareness and working on liberating ourselves have cleared that layer off the top. And then those that haven't been doing self-work, that have been stuck in more densities and darkness, are bubbling up and being heard. And we haven't been listening to them. And now we are, because they're being very loud and they're being heard. And, you know, now it's time to liberate them too, and let them see their light, and hope that they'll start doing work to become more self-aware also, so that we can all move into a more loving future and loving space to be on the planet.
And some will just steadfastly refuse to do that. There's going to be some percentage, but that's not our responsibility,
right,
to lift them up, because it's their responsibility. We can, if they ask for help, we can give help.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
we have to wait.
Our responsibility is to keep working here and keep freeing ourselves, so that we're contributing less to that contraction. Right. Yeah. And then they'll do what they do, but you never go back to where you began. Just like that, you know, more and more of us are waking up. So you won't go back to as many asleep. There might be some still asleep, but there'll be less and less and less and less.
And then we move forward. Be it. So you offer readings for people, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you also have the classes that are the classes, or is it classes, or
I've offered workshops in the past, and I'm there a little bit on both, because I'm focusing on the coaching and this master course.
Coaching is what I was looking for. Mm-hmm. Do you also do Reiki work as well?
I've been trained in Reiki. I don't call it Reiki, but I do energy work, and I can do readings, and I can clear energies at distance when I work with people. I've helped a lot of people heal that way.
And all that information can be found at www.shawnaristic.com.
Yep.
Awesome, beautiful. Shawna, thank you so much for joining
Thanks,
me
David.
today. I'm glad I've been looking forward to this. Shawna and I have been talking about doing this for at least a month, if not 6 weeks. Um, and I've really been looking forward to this. Again, I see Shawna every other week. Uh, and uh, we the entire time during the body work we are chatting about what's going on in the world in our personal lives and things along those lines. She's an absolutely beautiful soul, and I'm honored and pleased that I could share this little brightness of my life with everyone who follows my channel. Again, Shawna's got a TikTok channel. I'll put links in the description here. She has a TikTok channel. She has a YouTube channel. Are you on any other social media?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook also, but
Okay,
I mostly post to TikTok and then share that on the other platforms.
got it. So, if you would, if you're still here at this point, please do subscribe. If you're on TikTok, subscribe to her channel. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to her channel. Um, and help boost that up, because Shawna is really trying to help out the collective with this. And the more attention we can get to it, the faster we'll get through this.
Yeah.
And the easier it's going to be, because everybody can do their own self work, and that lifts. It's like a rising tide; it lifts all ships.
Yeah, exactly. We're all connected.
Okay. Anything else
I
you want
like
to share
that. The
before we end
rising
it?
tide, it lifts all ships.
That's it. Okay, thank you very much again, Shawna. I really appreciate it. Everyone, thank you again for joining us. We'll do a live this upcoming Tuesday, November 4th. I hope you can join us then.
Thank you.
Right. Have a good one.